Well, it couldn't make me happier to welcome all of you from whatever part of the country or outside you are. My name is Mark Benaj. I'm the founder of a little nonprofit called MakeKnowledge, and this is just the next in a series of events we've done around the future of education and the future of work. We did a bigger event this past February, what feels like 6 years ago, because it was all pre-COVID. And even though we made extensive use of Zoom during that time, it was a different world. And so anyway, now that we're all used to this remote learning, I wanted to get some of these events back on the calendar because the conversations are as crucial as ever. And absolutely crucial is the kind of perspective that Dr. Aki Murata is bringing today. So let me take a moment and introduce her and then get out of her way so she can share her work. I am just beyond pleased to introduce Aki to you all. I'm going to read just really briefly a short version of her bio. If you haven't had the pleasure of working with her or studying under her, you should know that Aki Murata is an independent researcher, a consultant, and a coach. She's held positions she's been a professor of education at Stanford, at Berkeley, at University of Florida, and she's done a lot of research in the area of elementary math education and also teacher education. She served as a part of a planning committee for the Stanford Teacher Education Program, was a faculty director for the Developmental Teacher Education Program at Berkeley, and was a program director for math education at University of Florida. And she has mentored and advised many happy undergraduate and graduate students who are making differences today in the lives of many, many students throughout the country. Originally from Japan, Aki's brings a cultural lens to analyze, examine, and understand US teaching practices, to help teachers understand why and how their own practices are meaningfully rooted and guided by shared cultural beliefs. And she believes that purposely using the cultural differences is a key to helping teachers and students learn important concepts. She extends the same principle in mentoring and coaching individuals outside of education. On a personal level, let me just echo all of that. I've known Aki for almost 20 years, I think, and I feel incredibly lucky to call her a friend. She's a big part of the reason I ended up at Stanford for grad school 12 or so years ago, and a big part of the reason I am where and who I am now. And with that, I will let Aki take it away. Let me stop sharing my screen. Oop, wrong button. And let Aki share hers.
Good, Mark.
Yeah, take it away.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mark, for the introduction. Introductions always make me a little bit humble. But it's wonderful to be here. Thank you for organizing this. As Mark said, we go way back, and it's a pleasure to be here connecting with my friends, Mark's friends, teachers, kids, people who work with teachers, and we all are concerned about our schools and education, and this is opportunity for me to share some of my ideas with you. But you know, I won't be talking too much, I hope, and I hope we have some communication at the end in a format of Q&A. So this book came out recently, and at the end of the this webinar, I have 5 copies to give away too. So please let us know if you are interested in getting a copy. So I would like to start sharing a screen. Okay, so Mark, it says host disabled attendee screen sharing. I don't know what that means. Mark, are you still there?
I muted myself, sorry, Aki.
Okay.
Make host, here we go. There you go. You should be okay.
Be able to do it now? Okay,
yeah.
So Good. So I will share my screen. Great. And I think I can. How do you do this? Presenter view? Nope. It's not a presenter view. I'm sorry. That's not what I wanted to do. Hold on. Sorry about this. I will figure this out. So, okay, now I don't know how to do it.
Okay, I think you go into present, you might have to get out of screen sharing, go into presenter view, and then come back into screen sharing.
Okay. Okay, now, okay, that's what I did. Sorry about that. How do I get out of this one? Okay, here. Okay. Hopefully this will get me in there. And here we go. I hope you can see this. So Reopening Better Schools is the title of the book. And I thank you for your patience here for a few minutes of technical difficulties, but I'm excited to talk with you about my book today. So, today's presentation, there will be three main parts. So the first part, I will talk about how the book came about. This will give you some foundation as to what this ideas are for this presentation and what we learned by the book. So I interviewed educators. So I will talk about what ideas came from the interviews. And then recommendations for school reopening is at the last part. What can we use? How can we use what we learned for school reopening ideas? So the first, I want to talk about how the book came about. So COVID-19 pandemic hit us all this year, and March to June 2020, as you know, remote teaching happened, and we all went into shelter in place suddenly in March, and family social distanced themselves away from each other, and a lot of people started to work from home. I believe some of us who are attending webinar today are still working from home too. And when we started remote teaching and learning, parents took additional responsibilities for children's learning. And but what I was more concerned about was how teachers were doing there. I'm a teacher. I have always been an educator all my adult life. And many of my friends, colleagues, families are teachers, and as well as my former students who are teaching out there, making differences every day. So I was curious how their lives have changed with COVID-19 pandemic. So as many districts and schools went into remote teaching without clear guidelines, teachers, to me, seemed like they were scrambling to put together learning materials. And I was seeing their social media posts and then reading some articles and news articles out there. And seems like there are ever-changing expectations for them to do a job without guidelines again. And also, as you know, we have had many major changes, right? Like standardized testing being canceled overnight, or SAT, ACT are no longer required. So I was curious how their lives might have been like over the pandemic remote teaching. So I posted a social media post requesting to meet with them, by Zoom this way, and to kind of talk about how their lives are going with pandemic teaching. So that marked about 6 weeks into remote teaching, and to me that was a perfect timing, because by then, they tried a few things, they learned, some things worked, some things didn't work. So the experiences, mistakes made, and solutions they found, and challenges that persisted, and expectations for school reopening. They had hopes and wishes for school reopening. So at the end, I ended up talking to 59 people. Most of them were teachers, but some principals, some teacher educators, and they shared with me again, like very generously, their experiences, their confusions and thoughts, and at the same time, it was a good thing that I think many of them said this, like, it was an opportunity for them to pause and think about what happened in the previous 6 weeks as they continued to teach for the rest of the school year. And at that point, many teachers were still hopeful that they could go back to school before the end of the school year because they missed their students so much, right? And unfortunately, that did not work for many of us. So what did we learn? What did I learn by talking to almost 60 educators? So many educators were concerned about widening social disparity, and this has been discussed widely outside of my interviews too. But many districts and schools, as they went into remote teaching, realized that some kids didn't have computers or Wi-Fi. So that was the first thing they had to attend to. So many districts and schools came up with a program providing free devices and Wi-Fi hotspots. I thought that was wonderful. And also they realized the kids need to eat. So free school lunches and meal programs came in place, and places to pick up lunches as well as lunch deliveries. And I talked to a few teachers who were delivering meals, and so really, like, teachers started doing a whole new level of service work. Wellness partners, partnership program, I heard that in some schools, teachers and other school personnel were paired with families for regular communication. And what this means is teachers were giving them phone calls, checking in, making sure they have food, they have computers, and as well as introducing them to other social services like meal, like free grocery pickup places or health related concerns. So again, like teachers and other educators too, but our responsibilities really multiplied overnight. And beyond that, I talked to teachers who are personally calling families or driving by student homes and sending cars to try to reach to students that they were very hard to reach to. And having done all that, still the data showed that up to 25% of students did not participate in remote teaching and learning. So that was a concern. So one second grade teacher in California told me, I have not seen some of my students since March. They completely disappeared. I'm doing everything I can think of to reach out to the families, but I'm worried about what they may be experiencing right now. And this was a concern I heard from other teachers too. Like I quoted in my book that one Black male middle school teacher in Florida just also said that he realized what important roles he was playing in students' lives beyond teaching history, right? That they looked up to them, to the teacher. Teachers meant safety to them, and that connection was disappeared overnight for some kids, and also it was very hard to reach some of the children. And another thing I learned was how classroom community kept students and teachers showed up. So for many classrooms, the culture developed since fall 2019 is what kept teaching and learning going remotely. And the teachers used many creative remote community activities. For example, like one of the elementary school teachers said she brought home some posters and artifacts from classrooms and put it around her apartment so that when she's on Zoom, her students could see the familiar objects in the surrounding. So, and another teacher said, she may be here today, she said, she brought home the classroom pet guinea pig, and she created some videos of the guinea pig giving daily classroom announcements. So, I mean, teachers are teachers, and I love them for these creative ideas to keep students' interests going. But desire to be together in a community was the driving force, even remotely, for teachers and students to show up. For many of us who taught like classrooms, I mean, who are classroom teachers, we know this, that belonging to each other, that sense of connection, that's a driving force. That's a real reason for us to go to school, right? So that worked. And many hope to come back to school before the end of the school year. Yes, the teachers said that it was just so sudden that they could not think of ending school year like this. But unfortunately, we ended up with that. So one teacher in 4th grade in California, she said, we are fortunate because we had a strong classroom community. We show up every morning on Zoom because we want to see each other. I cannot imagine how it would be like if COVID hit us at the beginning of the school year. Much harder for sure. And again, this was not only for this teacher. I heard this from many teachers. And the reason why she said it is because if COVID hit in September, when they do not have the classroom culture and connection and sense of belonging, they did not know how to keep the learning going. And that's a healthy way of thinking about classroom culture, I would say. But unfortunately, many teachers are doing this right now, trying to create the classroom community with the students that they do not have any physical knowledge with. And that's a harder task for sure. Another thing I learned by talking to the teachers is they were using remote teaching tools very effectively and creatively. Like those virtual field trips. Have you seen those? Like those historical sites and museums, they created those free field trips for teachers and kids so that they could just sit at home and experience amazing museums. That was fun. Those were fun, and they should continue to do this. And connecting with mentors from distance, this came from one 5th grade teacher. She said she had her students write essays on what they want to become when they grow up with different professions. And with that, she says she posted a social media post asking if anybody with those professions would write letters to her students. And so at the end of the school year, students end up receiving letters from a congressman, a congresswoman, actually, or the video game designer is something I heard. And, so like, and again, like this is an idea we could continue to use, but because COVID pressed us to stay home, some teachers became very creative and started reaching out to people beyond their apartments. So, and effective uses of virtual classroom sites for communication. So, like all the teachers told me about different tools such as like Google Classrooms, Seesaw, Flipboards. So, those sites were great for communication, posting materials, collecting student work, and sharing with parents. But some teachers also said that meaningful learning was missing from that. So one teacher who taught junior elementary grades, she is teaching kindergarten through 2nd grade, she said. I can say my students are reading and doing math problems thanks to the parents' help, but the sum of individual learning is not anywhere close. And I felt this when she talked to me about it, right? So as teachers, we do more than what we can see, if that makes sense to you. So, you know, if you're teaching math, you know, you are just observing your students, right? And your student may notice other students using different strategies, and they may just revise their thinking, or you know, they may just ask other student about something they don't understand, thinking in progress, where it was revised along the way. You know, these are the beautiful ways that kids learn with each other, and as good teachers, we enjoy facilitating these in between, invisible, implicit learning. And but you know, remote teaching and learning, as clean as it looks sometimes, those in between things are gone. You know, you can't feel it, you can't see it. And some teachers, including this thoughtful teacher, expressed concern about this. So what did we learn from all this? So how can we make our schools better by using what we learned during remote teaching? So what I kept thinking is, you know, what COVID did was to bring out the issues that we had before, but amplified it multiple times. For example, like if you are having a relationship problems, but you never addressed it, being quarantined inside of the house with your partner, you know, forced us to express those issues. Or if the business was functioning upon some inefficiency, when everybody started working from home, we had to, you know, address those inefficiencies. So the education is the same way too. So the things that showed up in remote teaching, I believe, are what we needed to pay attention to before, but we didn't, because we had other things to pay attention to. So the dimensions of school reopening, you know, this is how I want to think about it. So there are three dimensions, large dimensions. Physical safety is really like, are students and teachers safe? Are they healthy? And any academic learning, of course, and then social and emotional care. Unfortunately, but reasonably, most of the times when we hear school reopening discussions, we are really talking about physical safety, right? You know, and a lot of discussions are going on, which is reasonable because we want our kids and teachers to be safe. But you know, if that's the only thing we talk about, that once physical safety is in place, you know, what I'm seeing is we are just letting teachers figure out academic learning and social emotional care part, and that's not fair. And so as educators, we have to have all three parts in thinking about reopening schools. So there are those 5 points, those rethinking curriculum to technologies, programs. I will be talking about those things after this slide. But so I just wanted to give you an idea where these different key points fit in. So the physical safety again, like it's the main and only focus of school reopening discussions so far. Wearing masks, social distancing, hand washing, and some hybrid teaching is the combination of remote teaching and in-class teaching that came in place because of social distancing, right? So that half of the kids can come to school at a time, for example. So each school, I mean, interestingly, I mean, each district, each school seem to understand these important health practices differently. For example, some schools, they say masks are not required as long as students are social distancing. And I wonder how that is going on, you know, that is actually working right now, that, you know, how to have kindergarten, first grade students social distance from each other in playground, seems to me personally much harder than requiring them to wash, wear masks to me. But it's interesting. I mean, the different schools have different rules for this. The eating lunches in school, in classrooms, as well as eating lunches in cafeteria, as well as their social distancing. So I mean, I have a lot of ideas about this too. I mean, in Q&A, if we want to get into this, I'm happy to hear your thoughts on this too. But so academic-wise, rethinking curriculum this is opportunity really to me. So students coming back now at different place this fall than after remote learning than teachers received last fall. So they have been learning from since March at home, but we all agree, except for very special schools like a private schools in very well affluent area. I mean, it's reasonable to think that students are a little bit behind. But then what does it mean to be behind? That's another question too, right? Kids are where they are, and that's where teachers start. So prioritizing and adjusting learning topics and standards would be a thing. Like, it's an important thing that not too many people are talking about, and I am wondering about this too. So if you are teaching 5th grade math, you cannot start as you always do with 5th grade math, right? You may have to review 4th grade math and reteach 4th grade math before your students are ready for the curriculum that you usually teach. So minimizing the number of subject matter topics to support the students' learning for this year would be important, and that will affect their learning for the future years too, right? So, but we've said this many times before. The US have inch deep and mile wide education, that we teach too many things too quickly, and we just touch the surface and we don't go anything more deeply. So this is a great opportunity, to me anyway, to really like prioritize some standards and not focusing on the others, so that kids can really learn few important things beyond the others. Another thing about academic teaching, academic learning, the remote teaching tools that teachers learn to use so well, that should continue to happen, I would say. So hybrid teaching, remote teaching will be an expectation for a while. So use remote teaching tools as platforms to maintain the communication, like, putting the syllabus on there, schedules on there, assignments there, and providing learning materials where students can access to them when they want to. If they want to study, do homework in the middle of the night, early morning, that should be available there. And collecting students' work is a great thing to do on a remote teaching platform, so that teachers don't have to keep track of things. It's all there. And also parents can get access to what's going on with school easily if they have the access to the site. So how to combine physical teaching time wisely with higher level learning? So it's going to be it's an interesting, like, empirical question, I think. I would love to see that. So again, like, for many years or many decades, I think, there were those remote teaching tools available, like online teaching tools, but we never had a urgent enough reason to have to use it as teachers. But now that we do, we will be able to find the way that we can use the remote teaching tools to communicate, store, collect, and share student work, while really focusing on more meaningful and higher level learning in class. And I'm hopeful that if we thoughtfully approach this, we have a lot to learn from that. And new and stronger programs, this is very important. right? So whether in person or hybrid or remote teaching is going on in your schools, computers and internet accesses, those are essential. So, I mean, many schools, many districts came with programs for that, and we want to strengthen this. And mental health and social emotional support services, it's important, very, very important. Our kids are coming after being away for a few months. So we want to have school psychologists, social workers, mental health professionals ready to work with students and look for the signs of distress and uncertainties. And that goes for teachers too. And greater support for special education programs. We learned that it's very hard to teach special education programs online. So we learned this, so we can do better as students come back in any format that reopening school means. And creating programs for students who participated very little during remote learning. This is up to the schools and districts, and I hope that they are ready to receive students. I mean, these students need a lot of support and help, and for emotionally as well as academically there. So the social and emotional care, as we talked about, sense of community and belonging was what kept the students learning last year. So as you start the school year, as the teachers start the school year, I hope that they can celebrate togetherness after remote teaching and learning. I mean, every student will come back to you being excited. So use the excitement and energy to start the school year would be very important. And acknowledge that how students help the world while shelter in place, right? So they will be confused. I mean, I'm sure they talked to their parents and people in community why they were in shelter, but it's just the grounding the reason as a school community that each day they stayed home, they actually helped somebody else in other part of the world stay healthy. That's an important message, I think. So the students can take the ownership and then build the community feeding and shared goals in maintaining the safety and health from there. So they've done so much already that they can continue doing this, and that can become the shared goals among students, and then help students own the healthy practices and the wearing masks, washing hands, why these things are important. I think at school community and classroom community, I mean, I hope to see different ways that teachers come to define these reasons together as a community and share that. Professional collaboration for this year and beyond, it's so important for teachers to have time to reimagine and design and implement whole new learning modes this year and beyond. So, as I see like state level, district level guidelines, I see they are making like at least 1 day professional collaboration time among teachers, and I'm very happy to see that. So grade level and subject team collaboration would be necessary, especially for remote teaching and learning, right? If there are, for example, like 4th, 5th grade teachers in your school, it doesn't need, and not every teacher has to create the lesson for particular day and post on their own Google Classroom site, if you know what I mean. They can collaborate. They can make one and they can post it for 4 different classrooms. And again, COVID is creating the reason for teachers to collaborate more meaningfully. And I hope that teachers will take advantage of this. And so change the way we think about effective teaching. Again, it's not a isolated competitive thing of who's better teacher than the others. I think this is the time that teachers can collaborate, work together, and create collaboratively the lessons together. So the thoughts, ongoing thoughts again is I said this already, but COVID-19 helped us take a closer look at important issues, which came out in the educator interviews. So we can make our schools better if we take advantage of what came in focus and make priorities among ourselves. And the time at home collaboration among teachers, I think we have, again, this opportunity to define what is important among us too. So thank you. This is the end of my presentation, and I would love to have your see your questions now. So I'm going to get out of the slides. Here you go. Hi, Mark.
Hello, thank you so much. I have a few questions for you, and I also want to see questions from the participants. So you can use, if you are listening in, you may use the Q&A feature down at the bottom of your screen. Just hover if you don't see that, just hover your mouse over the bottom of your screen and you should be able to see the Q&A box. And we'll wait for those. And Aki and I can both see those. And so we'll get to those shortly. I wanted to start with a few, if you haven't gotten the book yet, I would start with a few passages that I thought that really struck me, because you do such a good job of, focusing on two really key things. One is like you keep centering the importance of pedagogy and teaching, the actual practice of teaching, and that all of that means the relationship with the kids and so on. And then the equity piece is so strong in your writing. And so here's a quote for you, and I want you to react to it. You say, growing up in schools in the US, many students of color receive subtle messages that it's okay for them not to be smart as long as they can play basketball or do other sports well. For students of color to get intellectual attention in schools, it takes more than just being smart and doing their work, right? So not being smart is not good enough. So what else is needed here? You talk a little bit about what else can the school community do, and what are the missing pieces here?
Yeah, thank you for that. I mean, I didn't talk about the part of my book today, so for one reason or another, but probably 1/3 of the book is about like educational equity, actually. Whoever gets read this book, that's yes, being a student of color in U.S. schools is it's a learning, right? Like, I think a lot about this. So you go to school and you learn that you have a different set of rules to follow compared to white students. And when white students get away with things, you usually don't get away. Like if you talk louder, you jump higher, you run faster in playground, you may be perceived as you're too aggressive, too loud, too mean, to something. So for that, and also, like, if you speak up in a classroom, I mean, there's research on this. The teachers tend to pick white students over students of color. And I mean, I remember being in grad school like that too. If I say something, it can be bypassed really quickly. But if my white male colleague says it 5 minutes later, he's going to be praised for such a creative, for the idea that he had. So, we know this as students of color. That's how it is out there. I think I talked about anti-racist education in my book too, but to me, anti-racist education starts and happens among teachers. So like re-examining like those instructional decisions teachers make in classrooms for one reason or another. When you decide to place Black child in remedial reading group and think, okay, he's going to be, he's not going to be challenged, but he's going to be happy there because what is the question again? When you're seeing the another white students at the same reading level, you may just decide to put him in a higher level because you think that he would blossom with the challenge. Why is that? right? So, I mean, this is something I've been thinking a lot about this too. Like if you want to start anti-racist education, anti-racism kind of programs or strong messages in classrooms and schools, we have to start with teachers, right? And in order to start with teachers, I think we have to create the community among teachers to feel safe enough to talk about those issues. So that, again, like racism is with us in the fibers of our beings living in the United States. So it's not that, you know, you are completely not racist. I don't think that's possible. Actually, I am one, and you are one too, Mark. So start with that, and you know, each time we say something, we do something which is slightly on that range of area. I mean, if the adults can point out to each other and feel safe to do so, I think that's what I want to see. I don't know if I answered the question there.
Yeah, super. Yes. Yeah, let me ask you one more based on a quote from the book that I thought was, and and then I see questions pouring in. So let's see if we can do this, my question quickly. The quote I loved was, we're tired of talking about how much we value collaboration, right? Collaboration is important. We're tired of talking about it. COVID-19, this is a quote from your book, COVID-19 really gave us an opportunity to become vulnerable, admit what we don't know, and honestly collaborate as we all figure this out together. So just briefly, why is that vulnerability so important in the school community?
Well, vulnerability is important in any community, right? I mean, you understand this one more than anybody probably, but you know, in order for any relationship, you have to be vulnerable. If two perfect persons come together, I don't know what kind of relationship that is. I have White House in my mind, but I'm not going to talk about it right now. But so yeah, so you know, when teachers can start saying like, I really don't understand this, can we work together on this, or how did you do this, you know, I'm struggling to find the answer for this. I think those are important places, because those are real questions, right, they're asking to each other. And if they can, you know, come to ideas, some plans, some you know, instructional ideas that they come together, I think that's much stronger than one person's doing something, another person's doing something. What I often saw in American schools is like you know, I mean, in like copy room conversations where, you know, I tell you what a wonderful teacher I am, but you know, I never tell you the details, so that you cannot just attack me, kind of thing. And you know, you know this, you and I, you know, we went to Japan, we watched those lesson study, research lesson debriefing, and you know, I know as a fact, some American educators were horrified the kind of conversations Japanese teachers have, because they would really get into it, like, you know, why, how could you, you know, kind of conversation. But and but that's accepted professionally there. And that's how they make their practice better. So as long as we are only talking about comfortable things, we are not going to grow.
Yeah, great. So there's lots of new questions that have come in. Aki, I think you can see them. Do you want to just take them, or do you want me to read the question you answer?
Yeah, you tell me which one's important to you.
They're all good. So very first one is someone who knows you as a math teacher or teacher of math teachers, and said, do you have any thoughts and have you heard any strategies in terms of like differentiation, which is really important, but in the context of distance learning for diverse learners?
Yeah, you know, so the distance learning, the remote learning, we know this already, but the danger is it becomes so top down. And you know, remote learning, online, the distance learning, the good examples I'm seeing is like, you know, if the teacher tells the kids what to do, and then the kids do what teacher tell them to do, you know, that kind of thing. So Yeah, that came from Abby, huh? I mean, it's a good question. I will look into it, and I will send you different email, separate email. But yeah, like how do you, I mean, differentiation to me means like, I mean, it's not ability grouping, right? So like some teachers may think that, oh, then, you can just make different breakout rooms in Zoom and have, lower level kids and middle group and higher kids just do different things. And that's differentiation. But to me, that's just ability grouping and kind of taking learning opportunities from the lower level kids. To me, differentiation means like, kids are kind of in a big group, but then they learn from each other. The kind of things I was talking about earlier, like you can see in like, in between implicit learning. But then in order for teachers to do that well, the teachers have to have the really firm understanding of how kids learn particular things so that the teacher can identify, whatever Mark says, oh yeah, okay, he's there. So, I can just connect what he's saying to what other students said so that I can help him learn from that. That's a good differentiation I have in mind, and it's a very hard thing to do with distance learning for sure. Yeah, sorry, I don't have
That's
any
great.
suggestions, but yeah, but if anybody has any topics, I know, I mean, doing it with Zoom is hard too, but if this is a real in-person session, I would ask the audience, does anybody have any ideas? I would like to learn. So.
Great. Well, why don't we move on to another one then? There's one of our participants is a board member of a Montessori school that serves children ages 3 to 6. And
Okay.
they're in the middle of preparing. She said, we've given a lot of thought to physical safety already, of course, and academic
Yeah.
learning. Haven't yet thought much about the social emotional care for that age. Do you have any suggestion with these very small kids? Keeping social distance in a school would be very hard and possibly negatively impact the emotions of these children.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I did think about it. So this is like a physical school, like in-person school.
Sounds
That
like it.
sounds
Yeah,
like
sounds
it.
like it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, as I was saying
Yes.
earlier in one of my slides, it's kids will be so happy to come back. I can just easily see that they will be so excited that they can be in schools again, they can see their friends again. So we don't want to squish that because it's very easy to do so. Like if you start by how scary it is to touch each other and the virus is there and you're gonna get sick, that message needs to be communicated. But I hope that you can wait to do that by before the end of the day kind of thing. So just celebrate each other being together and praise them, acknowledge all the hard work they've done so far, as little as they are, wearing masks and staying home, not playing outside with friends. All these things helped, right? So they're doing great job so far. So let's do this in school too. And then what does that mean in school? That means we are wearing masks. And I know sometimes it may get uncomfortable, but it's important to wear masks so that we can help each other. We can wash hands. And, when you're playing outside, be careful. And but really focusing on the togetherness part so that we love each other. I love being with you. Everybody's so glad to be together, so let's keep that going. And then coupled with the safety issues, but more clinical side of it. I think in each school, I think you would like to have advisor or somebody who is knowledgeable of mental health issues, and you want to have a professional, like a teacher meeting where you can discuss possible signs that they can identify in students, stress, anxiety, because in schools you may be doing a great job there, but you don't know what's going on at home. And so so that's the part. And communication with teachers is essential. You know, that's something. I had a question from a parent asked the question, being asked the question to, what can I do? Because I am sending the kids back. And what I told her or told them was, you know, just to keep communicating with teachers so if you see any sign of distress or anxiety in your child, you know, talk to the teacher, talk to the school to understand what's going on there. I think that's important there.
That's really smart. Two more questions. This one on professional collaboration. We have an attendee who wants to know, are there new forms of professional collaboration online accessible based on subject matter that you see developing locally?
Professional collaboration, like programs or something, maybe?
So something that you could access online, and if you are if you're the one who, you know, if you posted this, you could clarify in the Q&A, that's great. Something that teachers could, you know, maybe math teachers or English teachers or some other subject matter based collaborative opportunities that might be outside your school, but still sort of locally accessible.
That's a great question. Again, like I wish I knew, I'm sorry. I was thinking more like a within school collaboration there, but that's like a development opportunity, huh? And I think that's a great idea too. Now that, I mean, as I said, you know, I mean, you know, within school, like, you know, the grade group or the subject matter group collaborating and making one lesson for subject matter topic, that makes sense, right? Instead of everybody kind of doing their own work, especially if you are posting it on like a Google Classroom or something. It's not a competition. Somehow it becomes that in US schools, but this is a time to collaborate. And if you go beyond that, and if you can have like a state level, national level collaboration, I think that's a great idea. Yeah, I will look into it. I'm sorry, I don't have answer for this one, but thank you.
Yeah, I've seen some Facebook groups spring up, certainly around the time you started your research, Aki, like, and some of them, but they're obviously not regional or local. They're, some of them are subject specific, and some of them are like these big catch-all things that then have developed subgroups and become super popular and develop subgroups by specialty. Then those became quite helpful, yeah.
Will you just share that with the audience today? Somehow?
Yeah, I'll probably have to do it in a follow-up email because I don't think I can navigate there and in time come back to the chat. The last live question that I see, although I've got more, is an attendee who says that he or she's just ordered your book, looking forward to reading it, and wonders how long would you spend on relationship building activities when the school year starts before you get back into academic work?
I mean, usually, like when I taught elementary schools, I mean, the first couple of weeks definitely were mainly about relationship building, right? So, but then I did think about what that meant, though, you know, this time writing a book. So the relationship building means to me that bringing kids into the classroom, meaning like their real personalities and interests and who they are, and by doing that you make connections, right? And then, you know, making sure that they feel it's safe to be themselves, the safety part, that, you know, I don't have to be in a specific way to be accepted in this classroom. You know, I can be myself and my friends like me, my teacher likes me, and that becomes the basis of their learning later on. So you know, I was saying to another person too, like I'm seeing a lot of videos teachers are creating, welcome to my classroom videos. Those are fun. And because teachers are home too, you know, they're showing like, you know, I have these things here and that, or just sharing the family's pets. And then, you know, if the students are older enough, and young kids too, they can make their own videos these days using phones, computers. And then by kind of sharing themselves that way to each other, and then teachers can start making connections, right? Like, you know, oh my gosh, like 2/3 of us have dogs in this classroom. Let's talk about dogs, or something. Just bring themselves to be together, and it's not ideal, and it's not the best, you know, when you're doing everything in distance. But I think there are ways that we can make those personal connections so that kids feel safe to be there, and the safety just nurtures the motivation to learn. I really do believe it.
Oh, that's wonderful. To skip back 2 questions about the, you know, what online professional collaboration resources available. We had one other comment from a participant. So Teresa says that in her school, which is part of a charter group that spans the country, a group of charter schools, she says Aspire schools collaborated nationally across those schools using Zoom by both grade level and subject. So if you're fortunate to be in one of these sprawling, you know, organizations that, you know, it's not a district in this case, but it's you know, a charter management organization that has schools across the country, that if you're fortunate to be part of that, then you've got those resources at your hand, it sounds like. Or maybe there are big urban districts that are doing something similar, where they have the scale to be able to support teachers across their district in math or in middle school or whatever. It's a little harder when you're on your own, or in a, you know, if your particular district or organization hasn't created that. I wish they had enough. Go ahead.
No, the more people put ideas together, the better we get. And I think as teachers, we need to believe that, and we have to practice that ourselves so that our kids can learn, our students can learn how to collaborate more meaningfully. Yeah.
I want to sneak in one last question. I know we're almost out of time, and sometimes you wake up. I mean, there are a lot of really good schools, and so not me personally, but like when you talk about this more broadly and across the country, especially currently in the U.S., where we have this idea of ourselves as super advanced, and then we've seen the response to the virus not happening on the national level like anybody would have hoped. So I just want to ask you, what's our agency? I'm a single, you know, individual teacher in elementary school at Kansas, or I'm a principal on my own, and I'm not getting support from the superintendent, or because, you know, maybe you don't feel supported, your principal's too distracted by state requirements, or your superintendent's too distracted by political things. What's our individual agency in all of this?
In COVID, you mean?
Yeah. To respond with such, to respond when the stakes are high, like this timing now.
You know, when I was interviewing teachers, educators, I mean, I heard a lot of things, interesting things. Like one teacher, she was my former teacher education student, but she's there in Middle Valley, California, and she said that her district actually told her and all the teachers not to use Zoom for privacy reasons, and also like don't teach anything because, you know, kids that creates social disparity because some kids don't have accesses. So the kids who so in that school, what I understood was that the school sent packets of worksheets to each household, but then household is not supposed to send it back because they were afraid of viruses. They're just supposed to teach at home or something. I know. I mean, I was hearing like, really, is that real thing? But she said that she was video chatting anyway, you know, and she called the parents anyway, because it's wrong not to do that. And she was reaching out, she was making sure her kids were okay. And I think we do, like many of us teachers kind of do the ethical thing, and also like we know which student needs more attention than the others, right? And we reach out to these kids, but these students who needed you the most may be the kids who disappeared the fastest too. So that's another thing too. But I always love those teachers who kind of stayed in a gray area, but did the right things for their students. And I think we all have the agency there. And yes, the state has their own thing to tell you, or the principal will tell you certain things. But I always supported those individual teachers making decisions to do their job for their students.
That's great.
I don't know. I may get into trouble by saying this, but hey.
No. Yeah, so I want to thank everyone for coming. I know we just ran over a tiny bit. We're going to put this recording online. I want to plug the Aki's book again. You'll find it on Amazon and other places that books and ebooks are sold. There's a forum, as I said earlier, online. In the chat, you'll find the link to the forum. If you fill out and include your physical address, either a work address, a school address, or a home address, whatever you feel comfortable with, you might be one of the 5 people to win a copy of Aki's book.
I'll send it out.
Yeah, and then, and you can find more information at her own website, akimurata.com. And we'll send some follow-up information so you have these links.
Yeah, thank you. And I'd love to hear from you out there. So my email is on my website, but it's aki@akimurata.com. I'd love to hear from you. Just send me ideas, suggestions, feedback. Just hope to continue the conversation with everybody.
Great. Thank you all for
and
your
thanks
time.
again, Mark.
And
yeah,
this was yeah. All right. Enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.
Bye, everyone.